Hello everyone. Today we have another possibility of meeting our current visiting professor at Collegium Intermarium, Dr. Robert Stackpole, who is just finishing his stay at our university. And today Dr. Stackpole is going to present his final evaluation of the Collegium Intermarium. That's one of the most important part of his visit, because the evaluation is the main goal of the whole project we are realizing at the Collegium Intermarium. So Robert, as I told, Robert is going to present his final conclusions, summarizing his whole stay at Collegium Intermarium, and you know, the lecture will be devoted to some recommendations for our young university. So Robert, thank you very much once again for coming, for accepting our invitation. That was a great pleasure to have you here. And what I can add is a very kind fact that your visit here is just the beginning of our further cooperation in the future. So we stay in touch and will continue our very fruitful discussions, meetings, lectures, and so on. So thank you very much once again, and now the floor is yours.
Philip, thanks so much for that kind introduction. And referring to the future, he's referring to the fact that I'll actually be retiring to Warsaw in a couple of years. I live in Washington, D.C. now, so I'll look forward to a long and close friendship with Collegium Intermarium in the future. As a visiting academic from the United States, I earnestly hoped that I would not find at Collegium Intermarium symptoms of the intellectual diseases that seem to afflict most North American institutions of higher education in the 21st century. In the USA and Canada, colleges and universities have been weaponized by ideologues, primarily by the political and cultural forces of the left, but in some instances by the political and religious forces of the right as well. The result is the phenomena in American academia that you've all heard about, I'm sure: political correctness, advocacy scholarship, and the so-called cancel culture, with student bodies mobilized for partisan and ideological ends. There's nothing wrong with professors and students forming social and political opinions, and even learning how to engage in responsible activism on behalf of those opinions. But at a university, students should be strongly encouraged to recognize that they are engaged precisely in the process of forming well-informed and deeply considered opinions and convictions, which includes the fair study of alternative perspectives as well as life experience, and which all takes time. Activism is certainly not the primary end of higher education, and even as a secondary end can subvert the true purpose of higher education if carried out in a narrow and illiberal way, especially when students are manipulated by the faculty for their own ideological and political ends. As St. John Henry Newman so clearly outlined, the primary purpose of a university is the pursuit of wisdom for its own sake, by means of what he called a liberal education. Michael Lanford from the University of Georgia summarizes for us what this means, and I quote, Newman emphasizes the essential need for interconnectedness of diverse branches of knowledge. He conceives knowledge as an integrated whole and recommends an interdisciplinary or holistic approach as a basic pedagogical principle. Rather than making students capable only of doing some particular job or producing mere professionals or technical hands, the university, according to Newman, produces liberally educated gentlemen and gentlewomen who are endowed with a cultivated, quote, a cultivated intellect, a delicate taste, a candid, equitable, dispassionate mind, and a noble and courteous bearing in the conduct of life. According to Newman, the university trains humans to, quote, to think and reason well in all matters, end quote, and aims at a general, comprehensive, and holistic development, that is, the formation of character, the value of which is often undermined in prevailing social and market parameters, Lanford says. Newman treats it, he says, as a danger when people become synonymous with their professions. A practical end that he assigns to university courses is training good members of society and humanity. Their goodness, according to him, would bring with it a power and grace to every work and occupation which they undertake, enabling them to be far more useful than what the utilitarian capitalist market can conceive of them. The university, as Newman ideally conceives it, should exist as a system of engagement with differences, thus ensuring a vibrant intellectual and philosophical culture. The university will not only aim at giving a comprehensive coverage of available knowledge areas, but will also allow apparently conflicting thought systems to operate with their full energy. The university will encourage imagination of alternatives and establish a congenial atmosphere for the birth of new, hitherto unknown ideas and skills. In short, Newman makes a twofold argument concerning the nature of education for students, Lanford says. Newman passionately defends a liberal education that prizes the development of individual intellect over institutional measurement and narrowly defined skills development. He also believes in the potential of the university to bring together diverse perspectives and areas of expertise in service of greater understanding. End quote. You know, I would add to Lanford's summary here two more very important aspects of Newman's ideal of a university that Lanford overlooked. First, a university will utilize, above all, philosophy, that is, human reason, analyzing the world around us and the world within us, the nature, causes, and purposes of things, insofar as reason can discern these realities. This is the intellectual science, according to Newman, that's best able to integrate the many other branches of knowledge that need to be incorporated in the development of human wisdom. Moreover, given that all the other sciences operate on underlying philosophical presuppositions, whether specialists in those other sciences are aware of those presuppositions or not, it is only common sense to examine and refine those presuppositions, in addition to the primary role philosophy can play in the search for a reasonable integration of the truths found in all the other sciences. Wisdom is the goal and product of this search for holistic truth. Indeed, wisdom in itself is indeed holistic, integrated truth. Second thing that Lanford overlooked is that theological truth claims for Newman also should be examined at the ideal university and integrated into that holistic quest for wisdom. This does not just mean the study of religion in its sociological and historical aspects, but above all in its claims to tell us more about the truth, about the reality of God, humanity, the purpose of things, and how we should live to attain human fulfillment in this life, the next, or both. Given that much of the intellectual history of Western civilization involved the quest to find a mutual enrichment and harmony between the truths of the Christian faith and the truths accessible to reason alone, and that this quest continues even today, students at a liberal university should be invited to know and examine this aspect of the search for wisdom as well. Now, I apologize for going on at some length here at the start of my evaluation lecture about Newman's idea of a university. But as Shakespeare would say, there's method to my madness. For what I found in my 3 weeks visiting and lecturing at Collegium Intermarium is that this new small university is beginning to pursue and incarnate Newman's vision in a most remarkable and exceptional way. Permit me to quote here part of what I wrote in the formal evaluation of the CI program that I prepared, which was one of the main purposes for my visit here. I wrote, "In my opinion, the feature of Collegium Intermarium that most distinguishes it from most other colleges, universities, and law schools known to me, both in the USA and in Europe, is its commitment to an integrated, interdisciplinary, and classical context for learning all at once. In almost every subject and program, students are led to appreciate the roots of their subject in the classical heritage of Western civilization, including the ancient heritage of Greek philosophy, Roman law, and Christianity, as well as enrichment from the history of ideas in the West in general, including Renaissance and early modern times, and contemporary debate and discussion as well. Students are not merely trapped in current perspectives and trends and debates, but guided to evaluate the present in the light of the past, as well as the past in the light of the present. This means that in every program offered, CI is forming individuals of wisdom, not just narrow specialists or technicians. For example, in the law program, the lawyers that graduate from Collegium Intermarium will be better able to evaluate the law and its practice in terms of standards they have developed of truth, justice, human dignity, and the common good, and not just in terms of what the law and the Constitution currently state or allow. Law for them will not be just the mastery of the techniques of winning in court, nor a tool to be used as a partisan or ideological weapon. It will be practiced in the light of its true purpose, which students will have been able to explore in depth in their study of its roots in the Western heritage of civilization. Several of the students and professors told me that this is one of the very best features of the programs in which they teach or study at Collegium Intermarium." End quote. The means by which Collegium Intermarium seeks to achieve this goal of fostering intricated wisdom as the context for the pursuit and attainment of knowledge in every subject leans towards the classical model of education. In a classical model, philosophy takes a leading role. The great and classic books of the past, which exemplify the pursuit of wisdom, underlying and integrating every field of knowledge, are read and discussed, not just textbooks about those books. In addition to contemporary attempts to do the same, and tutorial education takes a lead, enabling a deeper exploration of every subject and of the pursuit of wisdom as a whole that just can't be found solely in large lecture halls and the reading of contemporary textbooks about the past, dominated as they are by our modern presuppositions. Again, as I wrote in my CI program evaluation, quote, "In a nutshell, Collegium Intermarium leans strongly toward a classical model of education, but not in a narrow or rigid way. There are class lectures as well as tutorials, as well as other forms of pedagogy such as trips to visit prisons and the courts and the use of films and documentaries. It seems to me to be a prudent mixture of a variety of pedagogical means in the service of a classical goal, again, fostering the development of wisdom as the best context for enriching the learning of more specialized fields of knowledge, and whatever professional information and techniques also must be learned." I know that some who hear or read what I've just said, what I've said so far, may remain skeptical. They may say, despite those high ideals and time-tested pedagogical methods, was not CI brought to birth by ideologically conservative Polish institutions such as Ordo Juris and the Father Piotr Skarga Society? So how is there really room at CI for true academic freedom and fair engagement with alternative viewpoints? In reality, how can CI not simply be a partisan factory for propagating conservative political ideas and churning out conservative lawyers? Well, of course, to begin with, that all depends on what one means by the word conservative. At its root, Collegium Intermarium does seek to commend to the student body the merits, not excluding openness to critical evaluation, of the intellectual heritage of Western civilization. In that sense, it seeks to conserve something, that heritage of wisdom, as far as reason will permit. Sees it manifested in key thinkers down through history, especially in the great faith-reason synthesis of St. Thomas Aquinas, and hopes that its students will use that as a foundation on which to build and better perceive the further and more specialized knowledge they seek to attain in every field of academic and professional study. In that sense, CI is more likely to nurture conservative graduates, conserving those historic Western values and living from them, than graduates of institutions where the reigning worldview is now, say, postmodernism or neo-Marxism. But as the distinctly Western heritage also included both Enlightenment and diverse Protestant approaches, and not just the medieval Catholic synthesis, it's not at all clear that this will necessarily churn out graduates of a particular conservative Catholic political mold. For example, suppose a student at CI finds the approach to government and law of John Locke more convincing and congenial than that of Aquinas. Suppose he or she finds the vision of a free and Christian society better articulated by Edmund Burke than by, say, Pope John Paul II on the one hand or Thomas Jefferson on the other. I saw no evidence that such an outcome is prevented either by the underlying philosophy of CI or its pedagogical methods. Again, I discussed this issue in my program of evaluation, where I wrote these words: the college certainly has its own set of underlying values drawn from the classical and Christian heritage of Western civilization in general. All colleges and universities have underlying presuppositions and value commitments, whether these are based primarily on classical, Enlightenment, or even postmodern cultural and philosophical roots. But students assured me that they felt there is plenty of academic freedom at CI. They not only learn the Western heritage, for example, from Plato and Aristotle, Cicero and Marcus Aurelius, Augustine Aquinas, they are also exposed to early modern, Enlightenment, and contemporary critique of that tradition, and they are free to ask hard questions about it themselves as well. In classrooms and in talking to the students, that was my experience of CI as well. In short, from their testimony and from my own observations, I can say without reservation that at Collegium Intermarium, the core Western heritage is offered, not imposed. This is a remarkable achievement from my experience, as all too often in Canada and the USA at least, that core Western classical and Christian heritage is rarely presented in depth, and all too often caricatured and misrepresented and thereby unfairly denigrated. In another way also, I can attest personally to the existence of legitimate academic freedom at CI. I was welcomed to develop an online course at CI on the writings of C.S. Lewis, who was by no means a follower of the philosophy of St. Thomas Aquinas, nor was he a Roman Catholic, nor a consistent political conservative. He leaned left on economic issues, at least. But he was a philosophical idealist of sorts and an ardent Anglican ecumenist. In fact, there is one feature of this new university that gives it a distinct advantage in fostering a truly liberal education in Newman's understanding of the term, as well as being ideal for the promotion of research that follows the same holistic principles of an integrated, interdisciplinary search for truth. I'm referring here to the location of Collegium Intermarium, near the very center of Warsaw. This gives it access to centers for the study of law, politics, economics, the sciences, classical philosophy, and the Christian heritage of the West that abound in this capital city. There is easy access from CI, for example, to the members of the Sejm, to the main Polish courts, several excellent universities, such as the University of Warsaw and Cardinal Stefan Wyszyński University, large university and public libraries as well, so important. The headquarters for numerous businesses and several important seminaries and academic theology departments, both Catholic and non-Catholic. As I wrote in my program evaluation, the resources for research in all those fields and more are literally right on their doorstep. Through proper networking and the building of friendships and links over time, the opportunities for fostering research at CI seem almost boundless. I was also impressed, even in this early stage of the life of Collegium Intermarium, that they have welcomed collaboration with the Steno Institute for Faith and Science in Warsaw in order to support teaching, learning, and research in the traditionally Western and ongoing quest for a mutual, enriching harmony between Christian faith, sound philosophy, and the sure findings of the natural sciences. This is a great first step and an example of the kind of things that can be achieved in this location in accord with CI's underlying educational vision and all the opportunities available in the capital city of Poland. Now, from what I have said so far, one would certainly gain the impression that my evaluation of Collegium Intermarium is overwhelmingly positive. Indeed, that is certainly the case. I am very impressed by what they are trying to achieve, and given the limitations involved for a very new and very small institution, the extent to which they have so far achieved it. Like any thoughtful observer, however, I do have some recommendations as to how CI can do even better at fostering a properly liberal education, again, in Newman's sense of the term liberal, throughout its various programs. And again, I covered these in my program evaluation. Both students and professors in the law program expressed their hope that semester abroad student exchange programs could be created with colleges and universities in other countries, both in the EU and in Britain and in the USA. The challenge here, of course, would be to find an institution with a program at least somewhat similar to the one offered at CI, and that will not be easy to do. I understand that initial explorations have been made with Ave Maria University in Florida, and I recommended exploring a very different kind of university, a Protestant university, Liberty University in Virginia as well. As an American, however, I'm only familiar with some of the US and some of the British options. There may be other and better options available both in Europe and in other places overseas. Not only is the experience of learning about law in another country and another cultural context of great pedagogical value, broadening the students' horizons in dialogue with what they're learning at CI, having a semester abroad program also would have the added benefit of being a good draw for attracting new students into the CI program. Explorations doubtless will and should continue. Some students also expressed to me their wish that options for studying foreign languages at CI could be expanded beyond the present offerings, which de facto amount to classes in French and English at the moment. This would also facilitate their ability to learn about the legal traditions and realities in other countries and regions of the world. Finally, a proper university, from Newman's perspective, should not just be a place where students come as individual seekers of knowledge in their field and even of wisdom in general. It should be a community of persons striving to achieve those goals together. To be sure, the advantage of a small university with a low student-to-teacher ratio, learning primarily in the context of small classes and tutorials, helps foster such an outcome. Students are engaged to learn in depth when they do so in the context in which students and faculty together can discuss ideas in depth with each other, individually or in small groups. Moreover, as education in wisdom, in Newman's vision, involves also the formation of the virtues properly associated with wisdom, again, as previously discussed, these are best nurtured by relationships with those who already possess or are in the process of developing those virtues. University education cannot just be a head trip. Human learners are not just disembodied brains. And so the relational context of faculty role models of that virtuous character and the pursuit of wisdom, as well as mutual support and encouragement among the students themselves in pursuit of those same goals, is vital to the whole ideal of a truly liberal university. And deep friendships can be formed at such a university that can last and enrich a lifetime. From what I have experienced at CI, such wholesome interaction between professors and students is already happening here. But more can and should be done as soon as possible to foster a true community of mutual friendship and support amongst the students themselves. They kind of do it on their own right now, but there's more that could be done. That's why I wrote at the end of my program evaluation, and I quote, "One thing that Collegium Intermarium could do to help nurture student life and closer identification with the university would be to provide more ways for students to interact and bond as a group outside of class meetings. For example, some students told me that it would be helpful if CI organized an annual end-of-the-year celebration for the students at CI, where all the students from all the years of their programs could rejoice together in another year of study and accomplishment. Also, it seems to me that there needs to be, as soon as possible, as soon as this is feasible, a proper student lounge, apart from the faculty and staff, where students can sit in comfortable chairs and socialize with each other, keep items in their own student refrigerator and keep it clean themselves as well, and make their own coffee and tea, and even organize meetings and small social events for students in their lounge. This would help them feel more at home at CI rather than just as visitors to the building who happen to take classes here." End quote. Well, obviously, this is also more than just a matter of helping students feel more at home in CI and helping them more closely identify with CI as an institution. These are just two small and initial ways in which students can be helped to form closer relationships with each other, since in reality they are engaged in a common quest for growth in wisdom and knowledge, where mutual encouragement and support is essential to its full success, and where the virtues needed for that success can be identified and practiced. In short, I am much heartened by what I see at Collegium Intermarium. They seem to be off to a good start in many of the most essential aspects of their mission. And that mission, it seems to me, as it would to John Henry Newman, is well worth pursuing. Thanks very much for having me here and for receiving these reflections.